He didn't have time to care about her pain because he was so desperate for her right now. This was just an intimate session to him. No man wants to waste time on this, especially if it involves a woman for whom he has no feelings. Being sympathetic to her, he was her employer. He even rewarded her handsomely. This pain was something she needed to deal with. That pain, along with her grievances and hardships, poured out uncontrollably with her tears. She exclaimed once in pain, her eyes turning bright red, but she bit her lower lip stubbornly and tried not to show her frail side. She was, however, physically unable to withstand such a fierce invasion. She broke down like a lost kitten in the end. The man was like a cold-blooded emperor, robbing her of everything to the point of cruelty. The boundless pain she felt was just like the unrelenting ocean waves. As she was drowning, she was floating and sinking continuously. Slowly letting herself go, she gradually zoned out. She stretched out her fingers to reach for something, but there was nothing she could hold on to. Everything in front of her was black, and her mind was in a state of disarray. They fit each other perfectly. Perspiration heated their bodies. Stefan buried his fingers into her hair. He only felt greedy for more. She implored him with a clouded mind. During their excitement, he suddenly felt a puff of warm moisture on his neck. He lifted his eyes slightly, only to see her biting her lip and whimpering from the agonizing pain. Stefan's face stiffened. Gazing on the small face that was enduring it, he subconsciously lowered his head and smacked her lips with his. The tip of his tongue intruded her cavern and captured the little snake within. He twirled it around with his and drowned in all her sobs. A kiss to him was taboo. Kissing meant that they were mutually in love. He had never kissed a woman before because in his eyes, their lips were filthy. The women lingering around him were always socialites, daughters from wealthy families or celebrities, and he had never touched any of those butterflies. However, he did not know why, but he kissed Monica. To be accurate, she was his first. He had never known that the sensation of a kiss could be this delicious. Stefan slightly squinted his eyes and pressed onto her. From within a suffocating suppression, he quenched his raging thirst with poison. On the bed were tender and romantic sentiments. They sank into ecstasy. Within the darkness, Monica opened her eyes. The piece of red silk on her eyes was totally soaked with cold sweat. She heard the sound of shower water running from the bathroom. She nudges her body slightly, but a sharp pain emanates from her fingertips. It turned out to be from their intimate session when her fingers were clutching the ends of the bed. Her nails had broken from all of her clutchings, and they had sunk into the tips of her fingers. She pretended to be calm to console herself. Everything had finally come to an end. Hopefully, this was her only pregnancy. She had to wait until she gave birth to his child. After that, she could get the money and go back to her normal life. It was now past midnight. Stefan took a shower and changed into a set of clothes. His tall and broad figure stood in the room, and it was overwhelming. His eyes remained emotionless. Under the moonlight, the woman curled herself in the white sheets and continued to pant. On her smooth body were traces of his brutality. The pool of blood on the bed spread out just like a bloody flower in bloom. A ghastly sight. Monica lay motionless in bed, her back facing him. Her body, which was curled up, was trembling and was as stiff as a stone. He looked at her silky, soft hair, unkempt and completely drenched in sweat, messily draped over the edge of a pillow. He gave her a cold glance and motionlessly stood there for a moment before turning to leave. Bang! Hearing the cold sound of the door closing, she hugged her shoulders and felt the frightening bruises on her wrists. Her eyes were swollen, but she dared not to let out even the tiniest cry, even if it was just a whimper. Soon after, she heard the sound of a car engine starting up coming from outside. The vehicle drove into the distance, further and further away, until the sound of the engine subsided. Realizing his departure, she could no longer endure it. She immediately shut her eyes and sobbed her heart out. In this unfamiliar seaside villa, she gave the pure her completely to an unknown male. Before, she wondered why he would choose her. After giving it some thought, She concluded that it was because of her identity as a commoner that would be unable to fight for the child's custody rights in the future. She wasn't sure if this was right or how long she should keep it from her father. Her family situation had pushed her into a corner, and she was at her wit's end, but she didn't regret it. In fact, she was in no position to regret it. This thing called pride was too much of a luxury for someone struggling to make ends meet, and it was also her only way out. Moreover, as an adopted child, for the past few years, her father had always treated her like she was his own flesh and blood. Despite her adoptive mother and sister not liking her, she was not short of anything in life. Thus, she was already very grateful for this. Now that the financial crisis had left her family in dire straits, she had to repay their kindness somehow. She did not want to think of anything else for now. Stefan would never know that this night had left so many everlasting scars in her life, and even more so, he would never know of his future interactions with this woman. Dawn, the rays of the morning sun. Monica carefully sat herself up on the bed and slowly removed the piece of red silk covering her eyes. She covered herself up with the snowy white sheets and walked to the window to pull the curtains wide apart. However, the rays of the sun were unable to shine into her heart. From outside came hurried footsteps. The door swung open. Shocked, Monica spun around, only to see a dignified and glamorous lady walk in and approach her with an angry face. Obediently walking by her side was the secretary she had signed the surrogacy contract with. The lady stepped towards her. Standing still, looking all high and mighty, she examined her from head to toe with disgust. Once she lay her eyes on the hickey on her body, she froze. Monica anxiously covered her body with the blanket more tightly, but the blanket was unable to hide that love mark on her neck. Jealousy and anger pricked her eyes. She spoke furiously. You're that surrogate? Monica gulped. Yes, and you are? Smack. The reply she received was a tight slap to her face. You shameless creature! You! How dare you! The lady grabbed her hair with rage as her face drained of color. Don't think that by giving birth to his baby, you can use this to gain status. Let me warn you, I am his legitimate fiancé, and you're just a surrogate. Don't even think of coveting something that is not yours. You understand? Monica was astounded. She spoke perplexedly. I signed the contract, and I'm clear about the clauses. I know my place. Would you please? It's good that you understand. Her chest puffed up as she spoke, although she knew deep down that if she were fertile, this girl would never come along to give birth to the successor of the Lewis family for him. However, once she was reminded of them tangling in the sheets for an entire night, she could not help but flip out in jealousy.
Did you like this story? You can listen to thousands of such stories on the Pocket FM app. You can download the app now. Click on this icon on your screen, or click the drop-down icon right beside the video title. Or search for Pocket FM on the App Store on your iPhone. Now tap the Get button on your iPhone to install the app. Join millions of other listeners on the Pocket FM app and discover thousands of riveting stories today.